Well, I appreciate you joining me again here on Mondays as we're looking at the Friends of the Bridegroom Meditations. And of course, we're associating that term, Friends of the Bridegroom, with John the Baptist. I mean, the premier model forerunner. And John the Baptist had the end time, the God breaking into history with power and with judgment and a lot of things, some of the end time themes. And John the Baptist also had the intimacy with God theme. So the urgency that we're alerted when we see the end time storyline, that's why we do the end time focus on Monday, but on Thursday, the intimacy where we're tenderized. But the urgency and the intimacy, they must go together for the forerunner messaging to be balanced and to be right. And that was modeled by John the Baptist. Well, in session 3, I talked about 5 reasons. I did it real fast. 5 reasons why we value studying the biblical narrative of the end times. Why are we studying the end times with an intentionality? Now, that's not all that we study, but we're not just putting it aside as a secondary subject. It's a very important biblical subject. Now, I'm not going to go through the 5 reasons again, but I ended, my 5th reason was the challenges on the body of Christ and even on the unbelievers, the challenges that people will face if they don't have a biblical narrative. And these 5 challenges, I'm very alert. These 4 challenges. I gave 5 reasons last week. This is the 5th reason. I only spent a minute on it, so now I'm developing a bit more. That if we don't understand the biblical narrative, there are 150 chapters in the Bible, of which the primary subject is the generation the Lord returns in Old and New Testament. 150 chapters. There's so much information for us as a gift of God to this generation. And not that everyone has to understand all the details of them, but God's raising up end-time messengers that are really going to go deep on those 150 chapters. And I'm believing a bunch of you that are engaging with this app, that's what you're about. I certainly know that's what I'm about. But if believers, now we're talking about believers now, if they don't know the biblical narrative of what's what's happening, when the negative increases, the positive won't trouble them so much. It'll be new stuff. They'll probably have take a little while to get figured out, because some of it's going to be dramatic supernatural activity, far beyond the book of Acts. But the negative will really throw them off if they don't see it anchored in the Bible. And if they don't know that the body of Christ is going to have victory in the face of that negativity. And Jesus, and if they don't have a biblical narrative, I'm talking about born again believers, they will by default accept the secular narrative. Meaning the secular narrative is what people's opinions are as to what's going on when the negative increases. Because I'll just say it, as I've studied this over the last 25 years, the amount of negative things the Lord is allowing to have a place in his end time storyline and leadership, I look at some of those negatives, I go, Lord, if I was you, I wouldn't let that in there. If I was you, I wouldn't let the false prophet have miracles. I just wouldn't. If I was you, I wouldn't let the harlot Babylon rise up with the kings, the political heads of state, and the wealthiest men and women in the nations in unity in the heart of Babylon to come against the saints. I go, why are you doing that? Anyway, there's quite a few of those negatives. And because I've seen them in the Word, I'm braced for them, and I see the positive victory the saints will have even in the face. But if you don't see those negatives in the Bible, and you think that it's a surprise and who would have thought this would have happened, then by default, you'll take the secular narrative. You'll take a understanding of those negative events are wrong. You won't understand God's using them and they're short term and they're producing. God's going to use them with an outpouring of the Spirit to bring a billion-soul harvest in, to prepare the end-time church, to transform the end-time church as a prepared bride, and the salvation of the nation of Israel. That's the fruit of the power of God in the face of those negative things. Together, the pressures and the power with the body of Christ as messengers, that whole combination is going to produce a lot of good fruit. But I have an acronym of 4 things. These are emotional responses that are terrible, that we are far more vulnerable to them if we don't know the biblical narrative. And Jesus identified these 4 negatives. These are his ideas. Because he said it, I'm taking them very seriously. And this is one of the main reasons that I want to understand the biblical narrative of the end time. I want to be a shepherd. I'm with the 20-year-olds out there. With the 10-year-olds, they're going to be 20-year-olds in a minute. I want them to have biblical understanding and not just deer in the headlights. Like, what is going on? How could this be a God of love? Where's he at? Where's the body of Christ? Where's the truth of the Bible? I don't want them in that responsive mode. I want them with confidence and peace going, yeah, he said this would happen, and he said that this is how we would respond, and we are. So I have an acronym, FOLD, and I have the verses right here on my handout. I give a handout in every one of these short little sessions. And the reason I have an acronym, because without an acronym, I can't remember. I know that sounds stupid, but I had these four thoughts identified for some years, and I'd get to the third one and the fourth one, and I go, give me a minute. I know what it is. I said it many times. So I got the acronym so I could say it easy, and it's FOLD. In other words, we need to stand true and stand strong, not fold or not fall under the pressure. Well, the first one is fear. And I got the verses right here, but Luke 21, verse 26, Jesus talked about men that will faint for fear. This is not a small thing. This is not something that just the unbelievers far away from God will have. The body of Christ. I mean, when the COVID thing broke out, there was fear escalating in the body of Christ at a pretty rapid pace. Beloved, that was only a whisper of the trouble that's coming. And fear got a hold of people. And then, where's God? What's happening? Where's going on? And it was like a pop quiz. But here's the problem. We don't make good decisions when we get into fear. We make terrible decisions. And already, I can see many in the body of Christ, economic shaking, some political instabilities, some pestilence, or, those kinds of things. Far more can happen. F, fear. The next one is offense. And Jesus says right here in Matthew chapter 24, verse 10, it says, and many will be offended. Now, we're going to be offended at one another. I mean, humans with humans. And that's bad, because that puts us in a wrong spirit when we get offended. But worse than that is there will be believers offended at God. They're going to say, I was taught these things would never happen when the church was on the earth. How could a God of love let these things happen? Who tells the truth in the Bible? Bible teacher, are any churches telling the truth anymore? There's going to be a crisis of offense towards God when the negative escalates, and millions of believers thought it would not in their lifetime. And when it does, they're going to have to figure out whether they trust his leadership or they've been lied to by the church, by the Bible, and God himself. And they're going to have a hard time making sense of the God of love connected with the negative events, because it's hard to change your perspective like in a week. It's hard to shift paradigms automatically when you're under pressure. But if we got some years and we're shifting our paradigm, our perspective little by little, and the storylines coming into focus, the biblical narrative, we're going, oh, I can see that in the Bible, and I see that growing trend in history of negative. Oh, this is where it's going. We change slowly, not quickly. That's why the messengers have got to get the word out, because offense is going to be a major problem in the end time church. I'm talking about in the church against God. And of course, God will get a billion through it, and they'll be, transformed into the prepared bride. But beloved, it's not too early to start getting people grounded in the biblical narrative. F-O-L. L is lust. Now, this is the one word where I'm using the word L for lust. Isn't the exact word Jesus used, but certainly the idea he used. In Luke 21, which is an end time passage, he said, verse 34, take heed to yourself so your hearts aren't weighed down with lust, is what he's talking about. But what he identifies is dissipation or carousing, which is immorality, pleasure, those kinds of things, carnal pleasures, and drunkenness. He goes, be careful that your heart's not weighed down by immorality and drunkenness and these kinds of things, because the day will come on you unexpectedly if you're not paying attention. It will take you by surprise. Now, the reason this immorality and drunkenness, and put 10 more things in that list there. I just put the word L for lust, or the letter L for lust. I believe people will engage in pornography and sexual immorality and sexual perversion and drunkenness and drugs, all those things for pleasure's sake. They're doing it now all over the nations. But I believe the bigger reason they will do it in the coming days is to self-medicate. Their hearts are so filled with fear and confusion, they can't cope. If I don't have some relief tonight, I got to have relief right now. And there's the drugs, drunkenness, immorality. It gives them a distraction for an hour or two or three, whatever the nature of that area of lust they're taking hold of. But in Luke 21, Jesus said, beware. Your hearts will get weighed down. If this thing comes on you unexpected, you'll self-medicate with things that will be destructive to your spiritual life. You get into those things, the fog of war will come on your mind. You won't have any understanding of what's happening. The fog of war, yeah, that's a term from history. A fog, like you get drunkenness and perversion and immorality. You won't have keen discernment in the Holy Spirit. You won't grasp what the Word of God is saying. Beloved, this is serious. And these things will escalate if people don't have the biblical narrative, because they'll take the secular narrative and that will leave them with no defense mechanism to be able to answer these negative things. And the FOLD, the last one, is deception. And Jesus says in Matthew 24, that's an end-time passage too, verse 11, he says, many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. It's the only verse I know where the word many is used for two different groups of people in the same verse. Two different groups. There's many false prophets, and there's many that are perpetuating, promoting the deception, and many partaking of it and receiving it. Now, when we say false prophets, a lot of folks, they automatically go to the guy with horns. You know, he's so totally demonic. He's so obviously a cult leader and demonic powers. And I believe those guys are on the scene now, but they will be more. But that's not the part that worries me the most or concerns me the most, because it's false prophets. Use the word social commentators. It's people that are giving a narrative of what's happening in the culture that's a false narrative. It doesn't agree with the Bible. And they're false messaging. It's fake messaging. I don't mean that they're lying on purpose, like fake news. Some of it, the people lie on purpose. But these guys and gals are promoting a narrative. When they see these things escalating, they're going to say, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And these social commentators, they're cool. They're good looking. They're great communicators. They're popular. They got great media platforms. You wouldn't imagine them. You don't think of them as false prophet because they're too nice and charming. And they're kind. And they use biblical terms. They talk about mercy and justice and love and grace, but they're not using the biblical ideas. Biblical terms, but not biblical ideas. And a lot of folks are going to interpret the crisis of the culture through the narrative of these false prophets, these false interpreters of what's happening in the crisis in the culture. Many will be deceived. And beloved, this is spiritually dangerous when many get deceived. And the most horrible fruit or result of many being deceived is the great end time falling away. The Bible, there's a number of passages, I've got the verses written there. There will be a distinct, observable falling away that has so many millions of people who have a testimony of obeying and loving Jesus, and they throw it out the window and they go the other direction. Millions and millions. Well, I believe 1 billion new people are going to come to the harvest. That's good news, because people say, is there going to be a falling away or an end gathering? Both. But it will be the greatest crisis. I call this the greatest crisis in human history. The billions that had a testimony that Jesus was their Lord and Savior, and they deny it. Millions and millions. Hopefully not hundreds of millions, but could be 100 million or 2 or 3. It's so observable. It's one of the biblical signs of the times. Paul says that when the falling away comes and the Antichrist comes, those are two of the main signs. The falling away will be as prominent, meaning millions of people, as the appearing of the Antichrist on the world stage. Can you imagine how prominent that will be when that world leader's on the world stage? Well, the falling away will be that obvious too. Not a trickle through history. And the falling away is crisis. That's because they gave in to fear, offense, being weighed down with lust, or they took deception, the wrong narrative. So these are the 4 challenges. These are reasons why I want to take time to equip people with understanding help them to engage with intimacy with Jesus in a greater way, and urge them to be in kingdom community with godly people that are following the Lord with all their heart. Well, bless you, bless you, bless you.